Hey, tennis fans, you are listening to Matchpoint Canada, the official podcast of Tennis Canada. We're also members of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. I'm Ben Lewis, joined alongside Mike McIntyre as we are at the halfway point of Wimbledon. This episode brought to you by 10XTO and Fielding Estate Winery. And yeah, Mike, just 1 week to go in our third Grand Slam of the season. Plenty of surprises, and then a few mainstays and favorites also advancing.
It's been something else, hasn't it? And it's like a little bit of consistency with a whole lot of carnage sprinkled in between it as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what your draw looks like exactly from what you had in advance, but mine is, yeah, some pages look similar to what I thought was going to happen. And other pages, I think I mentioned last week, I just had question marks all over the place. And sure enough, those question marks have turned into names like Lulu Sun
Yep.
and yeah, a name that, wouldn't have been in my top maybe 100 to make it this far. So it's pretty cool to see it happen. It's obviously very special for those players, and you love to see the reactions from them as well, having career defining moments for them, not just in terms of ranking points and moving up the rankings and what this will do for them for the rest of the year. A nice payday as well, which is for many of these players such a huge reward for not just the weeks and months they put in this year, but the years that they put in since they were kids, and to finally have something like this come to be is it's great to see it, and at a place like Wimbledon as well, which is already such a special place on the tennis landscape.
Yeah, you can just feel, I think, the atmosphere and the surroundings at the All England Club. It just, not that it matters more than the other slams, but I just get a different feeling when I see a breakthrough from certain players. And that's been the case, I think, both in the women's and the men's side, women's in particular. As we get into some WTA talk, I will mention on this episode, we are giving away two pairs of opening night National Bank Open tickets for Tuesday, August 6th night session. So stay with us for the episode, find out details on how you can enter for a chance to win. Women's side, I mean, I suppose by ranking, this would be the biggest upset of the week, just number one seed Iga Swiatek out. At the same time, I know both you and I had a few question marks about what Iga could do or could not do at the grass at Wimbledon. And Yulia Putintseva, who was playing phenomenal tennis leading in, sure enough, puts an end to her campaign and reaches the second week. And it's another disappointment for Swiatek, where it just hasn't come together for her at the All England Club.
Yeah, and hasn't come together yet at the All England Club. That doesn't mean at some point it's not going to click. In fact, I'll be very surprised if at some point in her career, which still has so many years ahead of it, that she doesn't have a deep run and perhaps a title at Wimbledon. But doesn't surprise me in the least. Yulia Putintseva is such a tricky player, and even though she's never been past the second round at Wimbledon before, she's been to three major quarterfinals in her career on hard court. She's a very tricky opponent. Didn't quit after dropping that first set, and I got to watch some of the highlights at least. And she was solid at the net, although she didn't come in often, but 7 for 8 at the net, whereas Iga was only 10 for 18. And some of the passing shots that Putintseva came up with when Iga did venture into the net were so impressive. The backhand in particular, lobbing, passing shots, terrific stuff. Overall, 38 errors from Swiatek is just too many mistakes to make out there. That's not going to win you a match against a quality player. And now we get, as we're recording, Putintseva against Ostapenko, which is all kinds of fantastic for a spot in the quarterfinals.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode of Matchpoint Canada. If you'd like to follow along every week, give us a like below, hit the subscribe button as we're trying to make 15,000 subs. Yeah, that's a real firecracker matchup. Both of them, I think, unique personalities on the tour in kind of different ways. Both have their share of sass, I would say, on the court. And Ostapenko, obviously, we know has that Grand Slam pedigree, has the French Open title from 2017, and she's been playing some great tennis at times over the past couple of seasons, and like really almost walking through the first week completely unscathed. I mean, she beat the American Para 1-3. So she seems plenty comfortable on the grass. That just feels like one of many matchups where you just look at this women's draw, especially the top half, and it looks very open. And I know we spoke a little bit about Danielle Collins, of like, could she make a run here at Wimbledon? I've been super impressed by the way she's played on the grass. And I mean, all season long, she's just been phenomenal. And now putting it together at Wimbledon, too.
Yeah, and this is a player who 2024 has already been so special for her in announcing that it's going to be her last tour or year on the tour, as it stands right now. And she's making the most of that, and I think swinging so freely in knowing that this is it for her. And some players might approach that in a way that makes them maybe more nervous on court or a little bit more reserved, but exact opposite for her. And I had her penciled in against Marketa Vondrousova, the defending champion, who went out in the first round and looked so nervous when she stepped up, even for her first service game in that match. I'm like, oh, this is not looking good. The double
Hmm.
faults are already in there. The weight, I think, of being the defending champion was really heavy on her shoulders. And now we've got some names in there who are, yeah, not unknowns to us. Barbara Krejcikova is in there as well, who, of course, had success on clay at the French Open. But you've also got that name, Elena Rybakina, who I think still stands to me as the even more so heavy favorite with no Sabalenka, no Coco Gauff now going out as well. I think that really puts her ahead of the others in my estimation.
Yeah, she has to be certainly the favorite at this point in this stage of the tournament. Won the event 2 years ago. I mean, just absolutely hit Caroline Wozniacki off the court the other day. I think love and one. For me, she has the best serve of all players remaining in this tournament. I mean, she has one of the best serves in the world. Those powerful flat ground strokes just travel so quickly through the court. And yeah, I mean, look, there are a lot of opportunities here for a number of other players who've never necessarily had a deep run at a major before. Even I thought the draw was shaping up nicely for Coco Gauff, and she instead loses to fellow American Emma Navarro, who's enjoying obviously a bit of a career season, a college player who did well at the front end of the year. She's top 20 in the world, and she'll face recent French Open finalist Jasmine Paolini. So that's a really interesting matchup. Paolini had never won a match at Wimbledon heading into the All England Club this year. And I look in that section of the draw, I'm like, wow, like anybody could make it here. And the winner of that gets Vekic or Lulu Sun, as you mentioned earlier in our podcast.
Yeah, no disrespect to Emma Navarro. Like you said, she's had such a strong season. She's the 19th seed, so obviously someone who's been playing terrific tennis. But if you had told me that she would emerge out of that little section of 16 players above Azarenka, Sloane Stephens, Karolina Pliskova, Naomi Osaka, Coco Gauff, I mean, come on, what a fantastic result for her. This is very exciting. Donna Vekic, I mean, there's a name who's been around for quite some time and maybe hasn't quite lived up to the promise that she showed earlier in her career.
Yeah.
Lulu Sun, I mean, I got to be honest, I don't think I've ever watched a Lulu Sun match, but she will be playing doubles in the Olympics with Aaron Routliffe
Yeah.
for New Zealand. So that's kind of cool, showing what she can do in singles here as well. And yeah, the contrast between the top half and the bottom half is pretty stark. It's going to be a heck of a second week in the women's draw here.
Yeah, I'm interested as well in like you have sort of these unknown commodities as you mentioned in Lulu Sun and other players like Emma Navarro who have not been here before. And then you have a veteran like Alina Svitolina, who this is her second career semifinal at Wimbledon, actually third part. Sorry, she hasn't reached semifinals yet. She's been to two semifinals of Wimbledon and knocking at the door of another. She's been to the semis of a US Open, a formidable player who's had a number of WTA titles. Maybe it's an opportunity for a veteran who has never won on the Grand Slam stage before, but has sort of a pedigree and a career that you could put up on a board and say, wow, like she's a player who really deserves it.
I mean, we've mentioned her in previous years as one of the most talented players on the women's tour, active players to not win a slam.
Yeah.
And then you kind of forget when she was away for, it wasn't even a year, but when she was away to give birth to her first child, then it kind of comes out of your consciousness and you're not thinking of her as much. But she had been a top 10 presence consistently
Oh,
before
yeah.
that. And even though she hasn't won a major, this is someone who absolutely can still be in the mix. She's young enough to still have good years ahead. I like her name in there, a dangerous name. And I think her and Rebecca, if it gets to that stage, that'd be a real popcorn match for me for sure. One other player that I think we should talk about a little bit is Great Britain's Emma Raducanu,
Hmm.
who no longer in the tournament, but made the fourth round. And I think just so encouraging to see her have a result like this after all she's been through since hoisting the US Open title a few years ago.
Yeah, amazing tournament. Huge win over Maria Sakkari. I think she was building towards this in her grass court lead up. Obviously, I had a big time victory over Jessica Pegula, which at the time was kind of remarkably only her first top 10 win ever on the WTA circuit. She actually didn't have any in her path at the US Open when she won it 3 seasons ago. So she's really proven herself, gets that win over Sakkari 6-2, 6-3. I don't know if nerves maybe factored in on center court against Lulusa in the qualifier, who's obviously playing with absolutely nothing to lose. Raducanu at one point had a medical timeout for the wrist, so she loses in 3 sets, but still great result to reach the round of 16. I want to see her ranking get back up there, and I'm sure that's coming. She won't really have any points to worry about for the rest of the season in the summer hardcourt swing, so we'll see if she can do anything there. And all of this, in a way, is getting completely overshadowed by a separate controversy of her signing up for mixed doubles with Andy Murray, who got a beautiful tribute and said goodbye with his brother at Wimbledon. We thought they were going to play together. She pulled the plug the day before, citing tightness in her wrist. And so she doesn't have the goodbye with Andy on the court and faces a lot of criticism for it.
I'm so sick of the criticism that this young woman has had to put up with so far in her career. I mean, it's just ridiculous to me. She's 21 years old. She's a major champion. How many players ever get to experience that? We know what it's been like in Great Britain waiting for that moment to happen, just like we knew what it was like waiting for Andy Murray before he won his first of 3 slams. Andy Murray gets put up on a pedestal, and rightly so, I think. And Emma Raducanu, it just seems like by the media and critics, just for the past 2 years has put up with so much negative comments. And I'm really sick of it. And not just because she's born here in Toronto, we'd love to have her here in Canada, but there's no way she would be treated that way if she were a Canadian tennis player. And I think if she were from many other nations too, it'd be a totally different narrative. And I don't know why it seems to be over there. You know, maybe some of our UK listeners, of which we have several, could chime in and let us know. Because I just think it's so unjust and unfair. And even this, where she makes the fourth round of a major and she's getting wins over top 10 players all of a sudden, which is fantastic and should be celebrated. And what does some of the press do and other people? They focus on the fact that she couldn't play her mixed doubles match. I mean, she didn't end Andy Murray's career. Okay. His career was ending anyways.
Yeah.
And he had his moment in doubles with his brother. And I think that's probably the best way to go out anyways. But for her, whether it's, being protective of a potential injury or prioritizing, what's turned out to be a big run for her in singles, that's her choice. And I don't think anyone should make her feel bad for that.
Yeah, well said. I will say, and I was a bit guilty of this when I first saw the news. My instinct was, why Emma? Why don't you just maybe play the mixed doubles? And it was important to know that there was a big scheduling conflict happening with when they wanted to play this mixed doubles match, which I believe would have been a night session. She'd have to play that. She wraps up, who knows at what time in the evening, turn around and play her singles match in a day session. And if you're prioritizing yourself in terms of your career, as you said, 21-year-old trying to come back on the rise here, that's really probably would have been her biggest match in a couple of seasons, round of 16 at Wimbledon. That's
nobody's going to jeopardize that for a mixed doubles match. I'm sorry.
right. No, exactly. And what happened here as well, and let's be honest, some gasoline was poured on this, I think accidentally by Andy Murray's mother, Judy, because there was news that first dropped on Twitter from a reporter saying, astonishing news, Emma Raducanu was pulled out of the mixed doubles match with Andy Murray. And Judy replied, yes, astonishing. And I think people didn't really grasp that there was some sarcasm from Judy's end. She protected her tweets, I believe, for a day and then revealed like this was sarcastic, like don't hold it against Emma whatsoever. And so people felt that Judy felt Emma may have let Andy down. But I think the key takeaway for me is Andy Murray had the goodbye. They did the ceremony, they did the tribute, beautiful interview. He played doubles, as you said, with his brother. He had his moment. There was no moment necessarily taken away by her pulling out of the mixed doubles. If there were no other events that he was entered into and this mixed doubles match was going to be his last match at Wimbledon, I might feel differently. But he had that moment already, as you
And
said.
even then, though, even then, and here's the thing, right? Like that doesn't fall on Emma Raducanu. It's
No, it
not,
doesn't.
right? Like, and look, Andy Murray, and we'll talk about him a bit later in his fantastic career.
Yeah.
I think if he doesn't end at Wimbledon with mixed doubles, he's going to be all right. Disappointed, probably, sure, on some level, but hey, maybe the two will pair up at the Olympics and have their mixed match there, which hopefully Andy's healthy for, and we'd love to see that.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. Before we move on to some Canadian talk, as I mentioned off the top, 10XTO, one of our sponsors for this episode. 10XTO Athletic Club is an inspired private member athletic club located at Hotel X in the heart of the exhibition grounds. Encased in floor-to-ceiling glass, 10XTO is deliberately designed to bring the outside in, providing amazing views of downtown Toronto and Lake Ontario, featuring 4 world-class indoor tennis courts that give players the feeling of year-round outdoor play without the elements, a state-of-the-art fitness center, and a high-performance strength zone, plus access to the rooftop pool. 10XTO provides a truly unmatched member experience. Visit 10xto.com. That's 10xto.com for more information.
And I'm just gonna chime in briefly that,
Yeah,
I've been fortunate enough to become a member there this summer,
really?
and just had a hit actually at their court
No
last week
way.
a couple of times. I went
Okay.
twice last week, which
That's,
for me playing tennis in 1 week more than once is pretty amazing.
yeah.
And it's awesome. They're resurfacing their courts this summer too, and they're going with a new look. It's kind of inspired, I think, by the Miami Open.
Hmm.
The views are breathtaking. The way they treat people is fantastic, and they've obviously been big proponents of tennis in Canada as well, with Marina Stakusic, Vasek Pospisil, Bianca Andreescu, among others, training and hitting there. And so who knows what this will do to my game this summer, but I'm pretty excited to see between now and September what kind of progress I can make, Ben.
That's awesome. We got to get out together for a hit, a first official Match Point Canada hit because we've never played together. Um, as we shift over for Canadian talk, and you mentioned Bianca Andreescu, who I had some expectation for, certainly at the All England Club, based on how she played in the grass. She reached her first career final on the grass just a few weeks ago. She reaches the third round before losing to French Open finalist Jasmine Paolini, actually a rematch of their third round match at the French Open as well. I was on coverage for Tennis Canada for this match. Really high level first set. Just a couple points separating the two. Bianca missed kind of a short forehand where she had an opportunity at 4-5 in the tiebreak. That was that. Paolini took the first set and kind of rolled in the second. But I would say overall positive event for Bianca, who won the matches maybe she was projected to win in this case.
It's great to see her back and healthy and competing and not seemingly hampered by any injuries, really,
Yeah.
through these first few tournaments since she's returned at the French Open. And I only caught the first set of the match against Paolini, but she looked terrific. It was just such high level tennis. To me, she looked like a top 10 player in there. In particular, the way she's crushing those mid-air balls, without letting it bounce and just destroying them with the forehand. She
Hmm.
seems so confident. And it's too bad she's not going to, I don't think, make too many ranking gains from Wimbledon. Same with the French Open. I think she matched how she did
Yeah,
a
she
year
did.
ago
Yeah.
in both of those cases. But at least she's holding on to those points. And I think she's serving notice to her opponents. Hey, Bianca's back. And when she's healthy, look out because I think she can accomplish big things. And now with, the hard court, well, she's going to go back to clay, I guess, for the Olympics, but with the summer hard court season then approaching, playing in her hometown at the National Bank Open, I'm really excited to see what she can do between that Cincinnati and the US Open in August and September.
Yeah, that's her big period to really build up points, right? And as I said last year, I mean, I know she went to Montreal and played at the National Bank Open, but she lost first round and she was definitely playing
She was
injured
hurt.
and
Yeah.
that was a mistake. And she basically shut it down afterwards. So the entire North American hardcourt swing opportunities for ranking points and beyond, if she's fingers crossed healthy, she can play the Asian swing as well. I should give her due credit. I said she beat all the players she should beat. I mean, the 2060 Linda Noskova was in the second round, so technically on paper that was an upset and a really good performance against a good young Czech player. So I think overall really good tournament for Bianca. If we talk about Leylah Annie Fernandez, also obviously having a terrific lead up and a first career grass court final. I felt crushed for her in a way because she had such a tough second round match against Caroline Wozniacki. Their match was delayed by bad lighting, so they went off for an hour, came back in the third set with Leylah quickly forging ahead, winning 6 points right away as they got back on court. Was up 4-3 in that third set, had looks at two match points at 4-5, just couldn't quite close it out. Wozniacki was so mentally tough under pressure and Caroline gets through in 3 sets. But Leylah was right there fighting tooth and nail, and it's just one of those matches that didn't go her way.
And Caroline Wozniacki is one of the, consummate professionals. I mean, She's
Yeah.
been around for a long time. She knows how to, work a match like that. And so, yeah, I think for Leylah, Annie, learning experience, keep moving forward. Wozniacki got absolutely crushed by Rybakina in the next match. What was it, like love and one or
Yeah, it
something
was.
along those lines? Which I think just shows that at that age, not that she's, that old, but
Yeah.
it takes a little longer to recover. And with this Wimbledon and all the rain delays and things like that, people have had to play on an accelerated schedule, which is going to be tougher if you're, towards 30 than you are when you're closer to 20. Marina Stakusic, also, let's talk about her. Fantastic first experience for her, making a main draw of a slam for the first time. Great to see that, even though she lost to Siniakova. Again, sort of a veteran presence there, but a great learning experience, I think, for Marina. Excited to see her at the National Bank Open this summer too. I would imagine qualifying wild card or perhaps even main draw wild card. Too soon to say, but I think would definitely be well deserved. And maybe you want to chime in on that, but also let's not forget Gaby Dabrowski still alive and
Yeah.
well in women's doubles with Erin Routliffe, and also in the mixed doubles as well.
Yeah, no, yeah, quickly on Marina. What a great experience for her first Wimbledon, to come through qualifying and reach a main draw of a major is huge. I think she's going to be super deserving. I hope of a main draw wild card when we come to Toronto for the tournament. Siniakova played a great match. It was fun to watch, actually. 6-4, 6-2 scoreline, but I think this match was over an hour 40, and it was such a grind in the second set. They had long deuce games. One telling stat, actually, in Stakusic's favor, even though she lost this match, she saved 19 of 23 break points on serve. She was
Wow.
digging in and being really, really tough, but Siniakova played a really high-end professional match. But I think that's a great learning experience, as we said. Just 19 years old to have the opportunity to take the court first round at Wimbledon against a top 30 player and someone who's won Wimbledon before, by the way, in doubles. So what an experience for Marina. And I still think top 100 or better is a feasible target for her by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think so too. And one other thing, sorry, just to go back to Gaby Dabrowski,
Yeah.
they're having a heck of a grass court season, and it's their first grass court season. Her and Erin together as partners, and they've made two finals, winning one of them, and they're the second seeds at Wimbledon. I mean, things have been looking pretty good for these two. It's unfortunate they can't play doubles together at the Olympics, as Erin Routliffe, for those who aren't familiar, also Canadian citizenship, but plays for New Zealand, has to play for New Zealand in international competition. We wish her well, just not quite as well as we wish for Gaby, of course.
Yeah, it's really impressive how quickly it just clicked right away again for them on the grass, given Gabby missed that
Missed the clay
entire
court
clay
season.
clay block, and I was had maybe some trepidations about what her form would be like coming back from an injury. Would they need a couple tournaments to gel? And then right away in Nottingham they win immediately, and I think they lost 10-8 in a super tiebreak in the final in Eastbourne. So a very very well could have won two titles on grass. So it gelled immediately once again. Terrific partnership. They'll have an interesting match against Kostyuk and Roos in the round of 16, but I definitely think they're one of the favorites, obviously, to win this event. They're going to have a great opportunity.
I think favorites in any event they enter, really. So testament to how much they click as a team. Let's talk about our Canadian men before we also move over and look at what's left in the men's side at Wimbledon.
Yeah,
Felix Auger-Aliassime seemed disappointingly going out in the first round to Thanasi Kokkinakis in 5 sets, and that one really flipped and turned for him after taking the first two, allowing the Aussie to get back into it. And there was a delay in that one, I think, as well, correct? And then
yeah,
when they resumed, it just went the way of the Australian, who's a veteran player, a tough player to have to face, someone who's missed a bunch of time the last few years on tour, but still very, very talented, yet very disappointing for the 17th seeded Felix. You want to see him live up to his seeding in these tournaments, and that's what he wants to see as well. And sometimes I think he's just such a nice guy. He's just such a nice dude. Occasionally, I don't want him to go full Rublev, but would it hurt to maybe just like throw a racket and let some of that out? Because he's got to be holding it inside, you think, and I just wonder if maybe releasing it and showing a little bit more fire out there, not in the way that he competes and plays his points. There's lots of fire there, but just let it out a little bit more maybe and tap into that to fuel you. I don't know. I feel like in some ways, I think we've been looking for Felix to not only get back to the top 10, but go beyond that and put himself into the conversation with guys like Alcaraz and Sinner, and he's not at that level yet. And what is it that's missing perhaps to take him there?
Yeah, I remember we had John Wertheim on at some point last year, and he talked about Pam Shriver. He was talking about Hubert Hurkacz being maybe too nice a guy, and how Pam Shriver says, "I want to see your fangs. Show me your fangs." Like that kind of killer instinct, and maybe that is something that Felix lacks. I'm not going to say break a racket. I don't necessarily like that idea, but just the concept of
It feels
yeah.
good though, Ben. It feels good. Have you ever done it? It really does.
I probably did it as a junior, maybe. Yeah, but just yeah, having that ability to kind of step on your opponent's throat when you're in control, and it's almost like obviously I think the delay that carried the match over to the following day seemed to help Kokkinakis and Felix. You know, you have to go to bed knowing you had 4 match points in a third set, and this match isn't over. And then you have to turn around and see if I can take care of business. And Kokkinakis is probably feeling like he's dealing with house money here. And he was like, wow, like I was a point away from losing 4 times. And here I am. I have another day alive at Wimbledon. And it just felt like one of those matches that slipped away from Felix. He didn't get it done on the day when it was there. He had two of those 4 match points on his serve and didn't cross the finish line. And Kokkinakis being such a dangerous player, huge serve, these types of results can happen if you don't take your opportunities when they're there. And I also wonder if Felix was a little hurt by a bad grass court lead up because he had that first match against Kepfer where he didn't finish in Halle, retired trailing by a set and a break, and really didn't get any solid match play on the surface compared to previous years.
Yeah, and now off to the Olympics for Felix, and then the hardcourt swing as well. Obviously, let's mention Denis Shapovalov, and you talked about a big serve in Kokkinakis. How about a big serve in Ben Shelton, who took
Yeah.
Shapo out in 5 sets? And we knew this one was going to be a tough one. We mentioned it in our preview episode that the two seemed to be probably on a collision course just based on their grass, Dennis's grass court experience in getting through the 19th seed, Nicholas Jarry, and Shelton. We thought maybe inexperience on the grass, maybe that lends to Shapo having a bit of a better chance. I actually thought Dennis was a slight favorite heading in, despite the ranking difference right now, but Shelton was able to take that 1 in 5. And what a huge talent this kid is going to be for the sport of tennis. I think really encouraging for Dennis to take it to 5. And when it gets to a fifth set like that, look, it could have gone almost either way. And I think for Dennis, hopefully he's taken some positive from this experience, showing that he can hang with the best in the world, as we know that he has the talent to do.
What a great explosive match. I'm glad it happened. Lefty on lefty showdown. I know Dennis gave it his all. He had a nice post on his Instagram, basically, thank you, Wimbledon, like left my heart out there, basically. And he sure did. Stung by double faults a little bit, 13 overall in the match. And Shelton was doing a little more damage on the Dennis serve compared to Shapovalov getting fewer chances on Shelton's serve. I found this an interesting stat. From Ben Shelton's side, his win-loss record in best of three, can't remember the exact number, but he was 500 even win-loss record, 17-7 career in the best of five format. This guy lives for the best of five. I think just with his style of play, just being able to sort of work his way into matches and feel his ground strokes. I mean, he lost that first set, didn't flinch, and won the next two, and finds a way in 5 sets. He seems to be like that best of five animal. He's had big results at Grand Slams already, and he's still so young in the early stages of his career.
Yeah, well said. And for Dennis, no Olympics, opting not to go this year. So we'll see him this summer, and fans in Montreal will definitely be excited to see if he can tap into that magic that he showed years ago when he took out Rafa Nadal at such a young age. Before we move on to the rest of the men's field, a word from our other sponsor this week, and that is Fielding Estate Winery. Enjoy breathtaking views at Fielding Estate Winery's outdoor vineyard lounge in Beamsville, Ontario. With live music on weekends and a delicious seasonal menu, premium wine and cider by the glass, and flights available as well. Go to fieldingwines.com, and if you use the promo code MATCHPOINT, you can get 10% off of your purchase. So thank you again for Fielding Estate Winery, one of our newer sponsors. Happy to have them on board for the summer here.
Yeah, great to have them on board. Obviously some surprises on the men's side, but a couple things I'm not surprised by. Seeing Jannik Sinner, seeing Novak Djokovic, seeing Carlos Alcaraz all at this stage of the event. And I was vocal in thinking Jannik Sinner is going to win this tournament with the type of tennis he's playing. And I have to say, maybe it's confirmation bias, but I felt like he was the strongest player for the first week of the tournament.
And look, he's been the strongest player really since last summer, I would say, overall in the men's game. His rise to number one is very much deserved. He can play on all surfaces. We've seen it up close here on the hard courts of Toronto, likes fast surfaces. The learning curve this past year has just been absolutely incredible for him. And to see him now line up against Medvedev, I would say heavy favorite given the surface and Medvedev's, you know, open, I don't want to say disdain for the surface, but maybe struggles on grass. And then you got Alcaraz against Tommy Paul, and I think tennis fans are all hoping, no disrespect to the American and to Medvedev, but tennis fans would love to see that semifinal between Sinner and Alcaraz. This rivalry that, look, I don't think we're going to see many Slam semifinals from them over the next 10 years because truthfully, they look like they're going to be taking that 1 and 2 spot for a while. I think once Djokovic calls it a career.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it's just happenstance that it's a semifinal again. They just keep getting placed on opposite ends of the draw. That's by luck and by chance. So I'm sure I want to see Grand Slam finals between these two in the future. I'm sure for Novak Djokovic, he's probably happy to be on the other side of the draw. But yeah, Carlos, I think he has had a couple hiccups in the first week. Credit to Francis Tiafoe, put up a heck of a fight in the third round, sending that match to 5 sets and holding a 2 sets to 1 lead. So Carlitos being able to problem solve there and get through a tough match against an American who's obviously been a phenomenal player in the past and had a lot of struggles this season. I like Alcaraz probably in that match against Paul. And I mean, I had that semifinal penciled in. I think the moment I saw this draw, the bottom half of the field, I know you were talking about Holger Rune and his chances against Novak if they faced off in the round of 16. Do you think Holger has a shot there?
Absolutely. I think he's got as big of a shot as he could ever have had coming in this year, the way Djokovic has been, the lack of match play, the lack of consistency, the injury concerns as well. The fact that he basically said if this wasn't Wimbledon, he probably wouldn't be playing it. But it's a tournament that has his heart. I think for Holger Rune, this is I put it at a 50-50. I got to tell you, to
Wow.
be perfectly honest, just given all the things that are coming in, it would not surprise me if the youngster was able to take this one. And, speaking of youngsters, there's some exciting new names here that are not new names, but names that have been emerging. A couple of them from France in Arthur Fils, as well as, my goodness, Giovanni Mapechi Perricard, who saw this coming. And maybe we talk about him for a moment. He was the
Yeah.
number one seed in qualifying, lost in qualies, got in by lucky loser. And boy, has the 20-year-old ever made the most of it. Huge serve. His second serve is averaging out at like 117 miles per hour. How tall is he? 6'7"? What's his height?
Yeah, 6'7" or 6'8", 2.03 meters at least. Maybe that's 6'7".
And
Uh,
he knows his limits, and he's got
yeah.
that big serve. He loves coming to the net. He knows his movement is is going to be what players are going to try to exploit. And just love watching it. He compared himself in an interview to Chris Eubanks, who obviously has had success at Wimbledon as well. And now the guy's up to number 45 in the live rankings. What a wonderful boost, out of seemingly nowhere for many people.
Yeah, it's insane, and obviously, the perfect comparable. Yes, Chris Eubanks, who made the quarterfinals here last year, unfortunately lost first round this year. But booming serve. I think he moves pretty well for a big man as well. And I was trying to look at a few of his results of like, could we have forecasted this coming? And he did play well in Queens Club the previous week. Lost in the round of 16, but he beat Ben Shelton in straight sets in the third round.
And the
Uh,
tournament before that, he lost to Musetti, and that's who he's going to be facing
yeah,
now once again. And that was two tie breaks that went like 13-11-ish, I want to
yeah,
say. So
yeah.
should be in for a good one here. Maybe a five-setter with all sorts of tie breaks for those two.
Yeah, these guys are hard to play like on this surface. These huge serves. It's a lot of pressure. So we'll see what happens there. A couple surprises as we wrap up. We mentioned Hubert Hurkacz. He lost to Arthur Fils. Actually had to retire in the fourth set at 6-all, which was too bad. Andrei Rublev, you had him pegged, I think, for a deep run. He goes
Boy,
out
did I
in.
ever screw his chances with that prediction.
Too bad. He goes out in the first round. I didn't have high hopes for Stefanos Tsitsipas. He went out early, and then Jack Draper. He had such a good grass court lead up. The win over Alcaraz, a title, loses to Cameron Norrie in the second round.
Yeah, and look, Cam Norrie's been a semifinalist at Wimbledon before, so there's no shame in that either. And before we wrap up, and we still got our Wimbledon, final episode in a week's time, so do
Yep.
check back with us for that. But we've got two pairs of tickets, lower bowl tickets to the National Bank Open in Toronto in August for the women, and we're going to give those away. So please check us out on Twitter, on X at MatchPointCan, uh, Instagram at Matchpoint Canada, and we'll have details for resharing, reposting, retweeting, whatever you want to call it, to enter and be a winner to that wonderful prize for the opening night, which is on Tuesday this year, August 6th, thanks to Tennis Canada.
Perfect. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Matchpoint Canada. We will talk to you next time.